Hello, welcome to another Haxe tutorial in this Haxe tutorial series. In this video, we're going to have a look at some basic arithmetic inside of Haxe. So we're going to start off by declaring a variable, like we did last video. So let's just call this A, and we'll set this to 10. And then we'll create another variable B, and we'll set that to 5. And we'll create another one just to store the result of these two. So result equals A plus B. And when we trace this, we should get result should be equal to A plus B, which is 10 plus 5. And if we run this, as you can see, we do get 15. So as you can see, for addition, we just use the plus. And one thing to note is that we're still dealing with integers here. And that just means that this can't be a decimal number. So if we say that it can't be anything other than an integer. So if we do this, as you can see, it gives an error. Because this is a float. So a float is just the number with a decimal point. We can add on numbers after the decimal point. So this is how we do addition. To do subtraction, it's just the minus sign. So 10 minus 5 is 5. So those are pretty basic, but if this is your first language, you might find the next two a bit weird. But for multiplication, what we do is we use an asterisk. And this is on your numpad, and it's also above your 8 key if you press Shift and 8. Though that might be a bit different on your keyboard, but it's this symbol here. So we should get, the result should be 10 times 5, so it should be 50. And as you can see, we do get that. So this is how we multiply. To divide, it's just a /. And if we run this, as you can see, we get 2. Now if we hover over this, as you can see, it's a float. And even though this doesn't have a decimal point after it, automatically the result of a division is always a float. So this is a float if we hover over it, as you can see. So that's one thing to keep in mind. For example, if we did 10 divided by 6, it would be a float. For the other operators, they will give a float if we add a number to an integer to a float. So if we do 10 plus a half, this will be a float even though it's plus. So another thing to note is that this follows the standard order of operations. So if we add another variable, we'll call it C, and we just set it to 4. And we times this. Because multiplication comes before addition, we will get 5 times 4, so 20 plus 10. So we'll get 30. And we won't get 10 plus 5, so 15 times 4. So we won't get 60. If we wanted this to come first, we can use brackets, like we can in maths. Those are the 4 basic operators, and that's how we can use brackets as well. Now another thing that we can do is, let's say we have a fruit total and we have apples. Now we want to change the value of fruit total to include the apples. What we can do is we can do fruit total is equal to the old value of fruit total plus 5. So the new value of fruit total will be 10 plus this should be apples plus apples. So it should be 10 plus 5, so this should be 15. And if we run this, we get 15. Now let's look at another example. Let's say we have apples. We have 10 apples, and then we eat some apples. So we've eaten 5 apples, and we want to remove the apples that we've eaten from our apple count. So we can do apples is equal to apples minus apples eaten. And as you can see, we get 5. Now, if you're new to programming, this might seem a bit weird. Apples, this looks like an equation, but apples has 2 different values. But this is perfectly fine, because this is figured out before we actually change the value of apples. But as you can see, in both of those examples, we type this twice. And because this is so common, Haxe and multiple other languages have created a shortcut for this. So instead of this, we can just do minus equals or plus equals, and stick with minus equals for now. If we do this, as you can see, we get the same number, because this operator means take the value of apples, take away this from it, and update apples to that new value. And if we do plus, it's the same. We just add it on and update the value. We can also do this with multiplication. So we'll just go back to, let's say that we create a number. I'll say it's 10, and we want to double that number. We can just do num times equals 2. So num is equal to its value times 2. And if we trace this, we should get 20. And as you can see, that is what we get. We could also halve this by doing this. However, if you remember from before, division always gives a float. So once we save this, as you can see, we get a problem. And it says float should be int, because this value that it will give to num will be a float, even though we've already said that num is an integer. We can just explicitly say that num is a float. Or we could just do, so if we run this, as you can see now, we don't get an error, because essentially num has to always be a float. So one more thing we can do, if we change this back, is if we wanted to increase the value of num by 1, we could do num plus equals 1. But because this is a really common operation in Haxe and in most languages, there is a shorthand for this where we just do plus plus. And if we do this, as you can see, we do get 11. And we can also do minus minus. As you would expect, it gives 9. So that's how basic operators work in Haxe. There are some more complicated ones, but for now, hopefully that gives you a bit more of an understanding of how we do certain things in Haxe in terms of operators. If you have any specific requests on what you would like to see a video on, please leave it in the comments. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask, and please like the video and subscribe to see more videos in this series. and I'll see you in the next video, so have a good day.